Okay guys, today my big plan is I want to get the motor bolted into this Pro X440 chassis. Now if you haven't been following this build, or especially if you haven't seen my old videos on this sled when I was working on it a couple years ago, the whole plan for this thing has always been to put a 700 in it. Before I sold it, I've already had 700 in this thing, and I sold the sled, I got it back. Now I'm getting back into the build process with it. I have another 700 vest. This came out of an Edge chassis, so I had to source Pro X big block engine straps. It's very specific. It's not the same as an Edge strap because it's just not. These actually mount the motor a lot lower in the chassis in comparison to Edge ones, which, yeah, they bolt on the same way, but the back side of these would have a big old bracket that bolts to it, and it have a square motor mount between this and a bracket, and the bracket bolts to the bulkhead, whereas a Pro X, it mounts directly to the bulkhead, keeps the motor lower in the chassis. So I already went ahead, like I said, I got these straps, they're bolted onto the motor. That part is good to go. I still think I need different carb boots. I don't remember if I have any Pro X ones laying around, but I do have a couple I can try out. So this might not be completely finished, but this will be in the motor or chassis by the end of this video. But first, I need to go to my part sled in the backyard, and we're gonna get a couple parts out of it to put on here prior to dropping the motor in this thing. Also, bonus, sold some parts. So made about 500 bucks today so far off parts, which is really what I do. I like to sell the parts I don't need or I'm not going to use on any of my builds because I have a ridiculous amount of stuff sitting around, and take that money and I reinvest it in things I will use for current builds or future builds. So that's great. Always helps me out when I actually get some parts sold. And yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna collect up some tools here and go pull some parts. Okay, back to the parts sled. So I need that link. I'm gonna pull some coolant hoses off. Continue pulling the rest of this wiring harness off, but to do that I need to pull this clear tank. I'm going to try to get this clear tank nice again, get all that yellowing out of it, because I would really like to use this tank on this build we're doing. Also probably going to pull this fuel pump, so we will utilize that on this build. Side note, I did see the comment saying to use a leaf blower. I actually already did. I got my leaf blower out and I blew what I could. That's all roots, so that's still there. But that stuff did not need to come out. I probably will need to pull this bracket off and use it, because that'll be the correct one for a big block exhaust and a Pro X. I do believe so. A little bit different than the one that you would see on the 440 chassis. All right, fuel tank's off. Next is to pull all this wiring out. Okay, one dirty, gross wiring harness removed. Okay, I got tired trying to fight this link out here because I don't have the right size wrench. So I just went ahead and pulled the whole steering column, steering post, whatever. And we'll get that separated when we get it in the garage. So what else? I guess fuel pump, and I might pull this hose here. Okay, we got the steering link here. The joints were a little tight, so I went ahead, got these cleaned up, hit them with some brake clean, and then penetrating oil to lube them up. So they both work much smoother now. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this on the sled. Okay, got the steering link in. It steers now. So that's pretty cool. Got something loose over there. I think the whole steering setup is loose. it sounds like it's coming from back there, so I think the hoop is loose still. Okay, so we just hooked this coolant hose up, ran this coolant hose, which connects right there. And I'm trying to figure out where the hell that coolant hose goes. I'm not really freaking sure. So this goes to the coolant bypass on the port underneath the head here. This is the wrong hose. But this goes to the brakes. That one we can forget about, because that's all for, I don't know what hose that is. But I'm not going to use that. We're going to use that match cylinder, or slave caliper. There we go. The pinchy thing for the brake pads, the brake caliper. We're going to use the brand new one. But yeah, I got that hose down there that I got to figure out where the hell it goes. I'm an idiot. Okay, so that one comes around, sneaks around, and it connects to the top of the head. Haha, figured it out. Fortunately, I did not pull it off that other side because it's really gross. Also, unfortunately, it's a really expensive hose. It's like $108 from Polaris, if it's still available. So I'm gonna dig through some of these other hoses and see if I have a suitable replacement without going and grabbing that really gnarly, dirty one. Because I don't want to clean it. I already cleaned that hose, which goes beep beep, which is pretty gnarly. So, all right, let's see if any of these other hoses will work. Okay, coolant hose saga complete. Oh, that was entirely harder than it needed to be. Anyways, I got this dirty ass hose, got all cleaned up, and it is clamped onto this new chassis. Now, wiring harness. Okay, wiring harness is ran. Goes to the hood. Boom, 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 boom. And it goes up. I got all my handlebar stuff. Voltage regulator plugged in. And that's the wire to the seat. So, at least this section is completed. Enough to put a motor in. Also, figured out what my clunk sound is. That bolt's loose. So the trailing arm just kind of flops around. So that's what that noise was. Okay, now before we even get started, I'm going to go ahead and pull these carb boots off, because I know these are wrong. I know these are for an edge. And also they're drilled out. This boost bottle's fucked. So anyways, this is going away. These are going away. We're going to drop the motor in without these or the reeds, because I also might as well throw some V-Force reeds in it. But that's all going to wait until I find carb boots that will work in this chassis. I just want to take a second to appreciate how brand new these pistons look. Okay, before I get the motor set in place, I went ahead, I hooked up my oil line from the reservoir to the oil pump. I'm going to go ahead and hook up this cable right now, because on these Proxes, there's next to no clearance with the extra bracing these have in comparison to like a XC Edge or RMK or something like that. So very critical, do that stuff before the motor's in place, or you're going to be pulling the motor again. Okay, and with the throttle all the way back at idle, all the way, I went ahead and I set my oil pump. So the way you do that is those two lines right there. See how they're dead nuts? That is the factory location. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to adjust my nuts on the cable there, and I want the line on this arm to be slightly that way of the one on the oil pump. What that'll do is it'll be running slightly richer, and even at idle, it'll be pumping more oil to the crank bearings and the top end through the carburetors. So I don't worry about oil usage. I am all for oil. Oil makes things happy. Happy, happy, happy. So I'm gonna go ahead, get that adjusted, and yeah. Okay, there you have it. I was running out of adjustment, but I did get it slightly rich. So I'm happy with that. Now, oh, also, it never hurts to put a little lubricant on the cables, hold them upside down, spray it, work it. It's never a bad idea. Gosh darn it, I thought I was good. I had the coolant hose from there routed wrong. It comes out in front of the motor, wraps around, plugs in like that. Duh. Sorry, it's been a while since I've had a motor out with Pro X. And I can't get it sit on the motor mounts because I never replaced my torque stop. This had a 440 in it originally. Smaller motor, this is longer. So I need to swap this out for a big block one. I'm gonna go pull one from that Pro X chassis outside. Hopefully it was a 7 or an 800. Seeing as the coolant hoses are lining up pretty well, I'm gonna assume it was, but we're gonna pull this off the part sled and throw it on here. That should give me the clearance to be able to get the motor to slide back. Okay, before I throw it on, I forgot to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about between a small block and big block torque stop. You see how long this section is? See how short that is? That's the only difference. It allows me to bring this for the back. Theoretically, yes, you can cut this. Boop. And this would be perfectly usable. However, no need to do that because I already have one. I'm gonna go ahead and bolt this on. Let's get this motor bolted in. Whew, all right. There you guys have it. She is bolted in. I do want to build a little bracket here to utilize the front torque arm that these race chassis had. I think that would be really fucking cool. But that's it for this one. I'm gonna go ahead and plan my next moment's talk. Just kidding. I'm gonna plan what I'm gonna do next to this thing. I'm still trying to source parts. I need carb boots. I still need an exhaust. I'm gonna try to hold out and find something local, hopefully aftermarket. But yeah, progress.